Do you still think that the UN is actually useful? If you do, then you might want to get this book. It's called We Did Nothing. It's by Linda Pullman, and the subtitle is Why the Truth Doesn't Always Come Out When the UN Goes In. Now, this book was published a while ago, in the 1990s, early 2000s, and she talks about a method in here called blue rinsing. Now, this is written some time ago, so she's talking about the attacking Iraq. So, in attacking Iraq, the U.S. ignored the UN, but because the occupation had been stumbling on for 6 months, producing an average of 2 dead American soldiers per day, the U.S. leaders were putting pressure on fellow member states to come and help them. Not because these leaders have revised their view of the UN's role, but because, in the pre-war words of former Secretary of State James Baker, the costs will be much greater, as will the political risks, both domestic and international, if we end up going it alone. This blue rinsing means that when an invasion is over and the difficult, often dangerous phase of reconstruction and democracy building begins, then you're better off rinsing the operation in UN blue. You do this by pulling out your own soldiers and replacing them with blue helmets from member states like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nigeria. And meanwhile, you can send the rapidly rising bills for rebuilding a shattered, war-torn country straight to the UN. When these blue helmets fail, as you did, to establish democracy because they have too few weapons, too little training, and an inadequate mandate, or because the local population perceive them, as in Iraq, as tools of American foreign policy, then you can point an accusing finger at the UN. The UN has failed, you say, a claim often heard after a successful blue rinse. So, in this book, she talks quite a bit about what happened in Rwanda, and I read Romeo Dallaire's book as well. And subhanAllah, this book really gives you a lot of information about what the soldiers of the UN actually do. And it isn't an attack on any of the individual soldiers, it's just obvious that it's entirely futile, and it is a puppet of the United States.